We are here at the Ask a Filmmaker podcast. It is episode 2 for 2022. And I am here interviewing Sean McIntosh and Tony Sevier. Say hi, guys.
Hello there.
Hello.
And we're going to start off, we're going to just jump right into this and go into a speed round of questions right now to warm up, and then we'll come back for your introduction. So first question, coffee or energy drinks?
Coffee.
How many days in a row can a person wear a pair of blue jeans before having to wash them?
Is there a limit?
This is what your take is. And then we'll let the audience decide what the real answer is.
Until blue turns brown.
Okay, so that's an agreement there.
We'll go
Okay,
with that.
perfect. Settle a debate. Pineapple on pizza.
Yes. Without a question.
Then it's not pizza.
Oh, yeah. It's not a pizza without pineapple?
It's not a pizza if it has pineapple.
Oh.
It's delicious.
Okay, so that is a debate. All right, awesome. All right. Ooh, is a hot dog a sandwich?
No. I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say no.
All right.
Hot dog is its own little food group.
What non-musical movie would you like to see made into a musical?
Ooh. Hello. I feel like I'm on the clock now.
Yes.
What do you got?
Yes, you are.
Sorry, we're thinking. This is
Something
quality.
maybe something about a
entertainment.
serial killer or something.
Oh,
like
okay.
that.
Well, I would always agree with that.
Maybe.
Yes.
Friday the 13th, the musical?
Yeah, a dance number.
Oh, yeah, man. I'd never even thought about that. That would be so great. The camp one, right? Didn't they do a Friday the 13th at a camp? No, that was only, okay. That's Halloween, so I'm getting them confused. Sorry. That's even me. All right. What's the funniest clean joke you know?
Clean jokes.
Clean joke?
What's a clean joke?
Okay, so no clean jokes
That's
on
gonna
this
take a
show.
while.
Okay, all right.
We're going to be here a while.
And then worst ice cream flavor.
Daiquiri. I remember there's a story.
Oh, no.
I know this is lightning round, but basically, I got incredibly sick when I was about 5 years old eating it.
Oh, 5 years old?
5.
Oh,
So-
and just as a note, we may have some pop-in guests, right, Tony? So, yeah.
This one?
You might be hearing them in the background, so just letting you know that's the case right now. So, all right. Well, we're going to go into our intros now. So,
Right.
Tony Sevier, I've worked with Tony for several years on feature films, community events, networking, Phoenix Screenwriters Association,
Yeah.
and just so much more. So, Tony, go into a little bit more about your background and who you are and why people should know you.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you, Ava. My professional background from years ago, I was a psychologist. I worked principally with children, and then I also taught at several of the universities, teaching psychology in the evening. I've been writing probably since high school. And I'm also a musician, so I've spent a lot of my early years studying music, playing music, and so forth. Later on, I decided to kind of formalize my creative skills in writing and focused primarily on screenwriting. So I got involved with other screenwriters here in the Valley. Spent quite a bit of time on that, did quite a bit of writing, a lot of studying the techniques and so forth, and then decided I liked it so much, but I wanted to see the next step, which of course is filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone that's familiar with the filmmaking community knows you're either in LA working for a big studio or you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And fortunately, here in the Valley, we have a pretty strong independent film community.
Right.
So.
Yep.
We're very supportive of each other. You can get films made with some planning and a little bit of a budget. And so I hopped onto that. I did about a half a dozen short films, got into some festivals, and decided it was time to up the game and did my first feature film, Soulless, which you see
right
behind here, that involved an all Arizona cast and crew. Learned a lot of lessons about what to do and what not to do in filmmaking at the feature level. Yeah. Very supportive cast and crew all the way through. So that was very helpful. The film is in distribution on Amazon now and has been for a couple of years. And then I continued writing. I had a couple of other feature scripts queued up and wanted to do the next one, which was The Seed of Consequences. And I'm sure we'll be talking more about that. But that's when I pulled Sean in to shoot that film for me.
All right. Well, we'll turn it over to Sean. So give us a little bit about your background and why should people know you?
Well, I started acting back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I was working a bunch of customer service jobs, which I just didn't like, and decided, you know what, I'm going to go to film school. Went to SEC. I was living here at the time. And first job was casting for a Universal picture. And from there, I met people, networked, ended up taking me back to LA and worked on, what was the first thing? It was Big Love, I think I worked on the first time when I first got there. And from there, I just blew up from there. Worked on a lot of PA stuff, worked on the Social Network, worked on some Emmy-nominated reality shows, and then that's when I started getting into lighting. I was starting to grip electric. I was going to be an AD for a while, but then now, was going to go more technical. And from there, that's when I wanted to get more into camera. And came back to Arizona, met Tony, and worked on a few things together.
Nice. How many films have you done?
How many films have I done?
Yeah. What's your filmography? How many?
There's a lot. It's mostly reality TV, and that's on a lot of networks. There's Discovery, there's the Style Network, which unfortunately no longer exists. And but yeah, film-wise, there's at least 10 feature films.
Nice.
Yeah, you should check out his IMDb page.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I can't think of it. But, and then there's some where I was on there for a couple days, and it still counts. That's
it doesn't matter. Like if you've worked on a set, you get credit in most cases if it's a good set.
yeah, that's what's funny, because if you look on my IMDb page, like one of the main things that you're known for is the movie State of Play. And I was only there for one night. And all I had to do was sit around in downtown LA, make sure nobody walked into the set, which, at 2:00 in the morning,
But it's LA.
But yeah, I know. I was going to say it's LA. So at 5 a.m., people could still be walking in on the set.
Yes, and that's where I met Russell Crowe, and he's an interesting character.
So yes, I was expecting you to be name dropping from LA. So please continue. Go ahead through your Rolodex list of celebrities and stars, and then Tony will pass it on to you to go through that same Rolodex.
I think one of my favorite people I worked with was Justin Timberlake on Social Network. He was a professional, and I know he's just he's blown it. Speaking of working in downtown LA again, there's a scene on the Social Network where again I was doing the same thing, trying to keep somebody from walking into the set.
Right.
Closed down an entire 4-block radius of downtown.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
For one scene where there's a jib shot that comes down, and all it is just him and Jesse Eisenberg walking upstairs. And that was it. That was the scene. But that was all day, and I spent the entire day trying to keep the paparazzi from nosing in. Justin's here. But he was just a cool dude. Easy to talk to, and that was great. That's my favorite celebrity.
Awesome. All right, so Tony, what's your list of celebrities?
There really aren't any in that sense.
Well, Sean, I would say that would qualify now. Qualify. Yes.
No, I basically produce my own work, so I pretty much pick and choose the people I want to work with here locally.
Nice.
I try and stay focused on
Arizona
local talent, because there's plenty of local talent.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Behind and in front of the camera.
No, that's good. And so from the standpoint,
I can't say just through the Phoenix Screenwriters Association. I've had lunch with a bunch of A-list writers that have come out here to our group. I'm forgetting some of their names now, but the guy that wrote the story for Jaws, screenplay for Jaws, Carl Gottlieb, I met him at Comic-Con. We talked. The guy that won the Academy Award for Dead Poets Society, Tom Schulman. Had lunch with him a couple of times. If you go to my website, you'll see some pictures there, tsevere.com. You'll see a page with some of the writers that I've really enjoyed meeting. Randall Jansen, who wrote the screenplay for Oliver Stone's The Doors movie. I've met him. So I guess I do know some people.
Yeah, you do.
I forgot.
Yeah, actually.
But I'm thinking more on the writing side as opposed to the film side.
I'm going to piggyback on that. That's okay. So going back to the social network, that's when I fanboyed the most, was when Aaron Sorkin came to set. Because I've been a writer more than anything. I tried to write a novel when I was 12. So I was like, I've always had that kind of interest. So then, I remember we were someplace in Beverly Hills shooting, and it was the first time he came to set, and he was like, oh, where's David? Where's David at? I'm like, oh my God, you're Aaron Sorkin. Oh, David's right there. He's at Video Village. You're like, I'm trying to compose myself. That was he's my favorite screenwriter.
No.
It's really interesting meeting with some of these writers and having time to talk with them at lunch. I think Tom Schulman, he's been out a couple of times to our group, and he did, I forget, for Dead Poets Society, which obviously, won an Academy Award. I think he did something like 50 or 60 rewrites for that. And he was in kind of a dilemma with the studio because they wanted to retitle it. Can you imagine changing the title of Dead Poets Society? Really?
Wow.
I mean, it's iconic, but those are the stories you hear, when you're dealing with people at that level. But kind of like Sean's experience, these people most of them are very down to earth. You wouldn't think because of their celebrity status that, they just tell you great stories. Randall Jansen told some interesting stories about Jim Morrison.
I'm sure. Yeah. How could you not have interesting stories?
From interviewing the people that knew him at the time.
Yeah.
And kind of getting some of the real stories about his life, the short life that he had. And putting the screenplay together for that movie, which is a great movie, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I think based just on that discussion about the people and how you've met them, education is a big part of what you promote and what you are always like kind of bringing and making available to the filmmakers of the organizations that you've been in, as well as the networking. So talk a little bit about what is your drive to do that and really, bring the filmmakers and the community together.
Right. Well, I co-chair the Phoenix Screenwriters Association. We're probably the largest cohesive group of screenwriters, probably in the state, I'm guessing. We have monthly events. We do different things. In fact, this coming Saturday, Sean and I are going to be putting on a workshop for some of our screenwriters, basically to try and get, most of our writers have never been on the film side of things.
Okay.
And so one of the issues I think new writers face sometimes when they're writing screenplays, specifically screenplays, is that they often don't realize what it takes to get that script to be visualized. It's visual storytelling, and there's a lot of gaps sometimes for writers. I experience it in my own writing. I'm sure Sean is in some of his writing that he's done. So what we're going to be doing Saturday is we've asked writers to bring in about a 2-page scene. We're going to read it, and then Sean and I are going to try and describe how we would try and go about filming that. Because there's usually this gap between what's on the page and what's in the writer's mind where everything is perfect until you realize, well, I don't know what Ava is thinking right now unless either she tells me or I can see it in her behavior.
Right.
And we've got to find a way to get that her inner thought on screen to give that information to the audience. Yeah. And so we're really excited about doing this. I've been trying to encourage our writers to, film, even if they take out a cell
Yeah.
phone and film a scene, to
Right.
realize it really looks terrible, to really groom themselves on how to,
Right.
fine tune their writing. So we're going to be doing that workshop this Saturday in Tempe, and we're really excited about that.
No, that's great. I mean, one of the things that I will say about like the stories that I've seen you do and put together are, there's messaging as part of it, and that's baked in. And so working with the actors, and then as a director and writer yourself, right, bringing that to the forefront, right? It's so much more than just taking a shot and filming a scene. It's everything that's brought into it to make that a rich experience for the audience. So talk a little bit about, first off, influences that have helped you along the way, and then kind of what is the goal with a lot of the films that you're doing, not in the sense of distribution and getting it out there, because obviously that's a given. Everybody wants that. But for yourself personally, with the stories that you've selected and told,
All right. Well, influences, I think I put in terms of just my own film watching, I think Stanley Kubrick's probably at the top.
Okay.
But there's a lot of really good directors, probably all the classic directors that we could all share the same opinion about. But what's fascinating to me about directing, and why I even got into it, is I'd be watching movies. I watch a lot of movies. I watch probably close to 1,000 movies a year. I watch about 3 a night, I'd say. They're not all good, but you still learn from every movie.
You learn from everything.
Learn from everything you watch. And I was always fascinated by how a director gets the audience to move through a story, whether it's following them into a room, switching, doing a jump cut, holding on a particular actor, a particular character, and how that whole visual process is telling the story itself, regardless of the script. And so I was always fascinated about that. And that's why I wanted to get into directing. I thought that's really probably the biggest challenge. Come on up here, Bubby. This is Blizzard. He's in pretty much any photo you've seen of me.
He runs the house.
Pretty much.
Just so you know. Yeah.
But I was always interested in how the director guides the audience through that script, through that story. And that's, to me, one of the most fascinating parts of putting a film together is helping guide the audience. This is what you want them to see, to understand, to feel. And that's where, where Sean and I have worked together on a number of projects now. That's why I wanted him to shoot The Seat of Consequences, this last film, because you've seen it.
Oh, right. Yes.
It has a lot of emotional range to the story.
Yes, it does.
The good and the bad. And Sean and I, for the most part, because we work together enough that when we're going through the storyboard, when we're going through the shot list for the day, he and I pretty much have the same vision of what that scene should be telling the audience. And I don't mean just composition-wise, but more emotionally. So, and that helps out, especially at the independent level where budget is important. We're able to get the scene pretty much the way we both agreed we want them. Occasionally he'll pull me aside and say, let's change this up a little bit. And he's usually right, because he's looking through the lens all the time. But I find that we have a real almost, and this is true, I think, for a lot of filmmakers that work with the same DP over time. They have their own language. They kind of understand what the scene is supposed to be giving to the audience at any given time emotionally.
Right.
And so it's worked out great for me. We can guide the audience to feel certain things that we want based on what the script is calling for, and how to, again, that's the workshop we're doing this Saturday, as to how you can get the story that's on the page to guide the audience to what you want them to understand about a moment in a story. If any of that makes sense.
No,
and then we can talk about the music later on.
Yeah, exactly. No, we can actually save that probably for second half, because from the Seat of Consequences, I mean, there were a lot of great elements in that one, especially in the messaging. But one of the things that I really appreciated was the authenticity in the language, because you had them use, Spanish or the native language of, some of the characters as
Right.
part of it besides just English.
Right.
So why don't you speak a little bit about your point behind that?
When I finished the script, the back of my mind as I was writing it, I was thinking this would really be good to make it as authentic as possible. And so I wanted to cast the family as a Phoenix-based family, which the story is. It takes place in Phoenix. I wanted a little bit of recognition to the valley here. So I decided to set the story here. And then I thought more and more about some extra diversity in the filmmaking itself. And the story really lent itself to kind of a bilingual family, primarily Hispanic family, but they speak English as well. And so as I was putting that together, I kept that in focus. And then when it was time to decide, how do we want to cut this film, we just decided early on, and I'm sure we had multiple discussions about it. We're going to shoot some of the Spanish-speaking scenes in Spanish, and we'll just subtitle them. When we got closer and had already done our casting, I met with our principal actors, Jason, who plays Ramon, and then his wife, Maria, played by Marissa. I met with both of them and Sean, and we said, go home and just listen to how you use language here in Arizona, because we're not in Mexico, so it's not going to be a Spanish sounding film. It's going to be a Southwest film, something if you were in New Mexico, maybe even Utah, California, certainly, and obviously Arizona. The Hispanic community here, which adds a lot of richness to our community, I would say, at many levels. The food, the music, just the whole vibe. Adds a lot of enrichment to our culture here in the Southwest. And I wanted to capture that. So I had those two lead actors. I said, go home and just listen to how you use language around your kids. Most of our kids speak English here because they're in English-speaking schools. And they flip from English to Spanish. And in the film, you'll see that when Jason, when the Ramon character is talking to Maria, his wife, they're in Spanish. But when their son Humberto walks into the scene, they sometimes flip into English. I wanted to capture that. So they went home, we marked up the script. These scenes we're going to shoot in Spanish. These scenes we're going to flip, and these scenes we'll obviously shoot in English. And again, I think that speaks to trying to capture some of the authenticity of the culture here in Arizona.
Right.
And I think since we've screened the film now a few times, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about how raw the film looked, how authentic it felt. And interestingly enough, when I decided to do that, I rewatched Traffic, which is a brilliant film, 4 Academy Awards, and they do that. And that, if you watch how the director uses language there, the scenes that take place in Mexico, obviously in Spanish, and then there's an interplay there, and it's just done so tastefully. I said, that's how I want to handle language for this film, and hopefully it comes across that way.
Yeah, very good. Sean, I'm going to flip to you. Now that we've kind of got an idea about the basis for like the seed of consequences and that, for you on the filming side, what were probably your most memorable moments in filming some of the scenes with the seed of consequences?
I mean, I think it was just a lot.
And with that, we will be right back for our quick intermission, and then we'll come back with the rest of that answer to that question. How a production team reads your script. Saturday at 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Presented by Tony Severe and Sean McIntosh at the Westside Community Center. Screenwriting may be the most challenging literary form. In poetry, novels, even music, the art form is expressed in the same medium as it is created. Words on a page to words on a page, or in the case of music, the work is created on an instrument and performed on an instrument. A screenplay is unique in this sense. Words are created on a page, but somehow are transformed into moving images on a screen. In this respect, it could be argued that a great story doesn't make a great movie. A great screenplay makes a great movie. The script is essentially a set of instructions for a production team to follow to interpret the story in visual form. One of the obstacles most screenwriters face, particularly new writers, is that the story is perfect in his or her mind. The writer knows all the characters, their intentions, etc., and subconsciously fills in information that a reader, viewer doesn't have. Consequently, the maxim of writing, show don't tell, is often overlooked when writing a screenplay. This workshop will illustrate how a production team reads and attempts to transform a script into a movie. The presenters are screenwriter and filmmaker Tony Severe and director of photography Sean McIntosh. The two have worked together on a number of film projects, most recently the feature film The Seed of Consequences, which is currently on the festival circuit, already having had festival screenings on 4 continents. Attendees are asked to bring 4 printed copies of a scene of up to 2 pages from a screenplay they have written. The scene will be read aloud, and the presenters will discuss how they would go about filming the scene, focusing on how the scene would or would not easily translate to the screen, and how to better visually give information to the viewer that is needed to understand your story. We will try and get to as many scene readings as time permits. Excerpts from the screenplay, The Seed of Consequences, and the corresponding clips from the film will be reviewed if time allows. This workshop will be a great opportunity to see how a production team will go about filming your screenplay. You may RSVP at the Facebook event link that will be part of this video and on this advertisement. Thank you. We're back from intermission, and I have a question that I'm going to ask Sean. What are the most memorable moments that you have related to filming on The Seed of Consequences? We just got through talking to Tony a little bit about some of the story and messaging, so let's get that from you.
Well, like you said, like the rawness of it was amazing, and so we used. For the most part, we used a jib, so we can just keep stuff rolling, keep the actors acting, and just kind of see where it all went, because they were amazing. There was amazing ensemble cast, and then they would just kind of just work off each other, and then I would do my best to keep them all in frame. But like there were a few moments in that movie. There's a fight scene that goes on outside, and we just let the camera roll. It was one take kind of thing. We could have chopped it up and made it kind of more of a action scene, but we didn't. We just left one shot, and it just seemed very real. Like when we were watching it, I mean, it was just everything. It seemed like it was like happening right there. It was still the same kind of camera movement, angle, everything. It was just like you were there. Like watching this happen, I think it added to the emotion of everything, because that was towards kind of the climax of this is where this character is going to go with this, and so after that was kind of the tipping point. And
let me add something to that, because it's a brilliant scene, and it was a very hot day. We were filming way up in Northwest Phoenix, someplace. I forget whose house we were at. But we had the jib set up. We had to move it a few times just because of the background and so forth. What's interesting about that clip where the two characters get in a fist fight with Maria, the Maria character in the middle, is like he said, it just is so real looking. When I brought it into post-production to actually see it on the computer, it looked like it could have been filmed by a news crew. It was so realistic looking. The angles where those punches go, it just was a high point to the film cinematically to capture something like that. Because I think we did just let the camera roll.
We did,
and the angles are just absolutely perfect, and the actors just totally delivered on it. It's a great scene.
Yeah. So would you consider that, like a lot of times in a film, there'll be that accidental shot that you get that's just freaking amazing, that has to be the happy accidents. So besides that, would you consider that one a happy accident, or would you have another one that might have fallen into that category?
That one, no, but there is.
I wouldn't say it was either. He had that planned out pretty good. He could see where his line would be for the actors. He had the jib, like I say, we repositioned it a few times.
So you're just that good. That's basically
Well,
what we're saying right now. Okay.
I had a plan, and
I'm gonna agree with that. It was that
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Okay.
Even the depth of field, like you don't even
Everything.
see like somebody coming out and tell right there, like I love that scene. But there were some happy accidents, were there? Like, well,
I'm trying to think.
yeah. This is
Yeah, this is a test.
quality right here. This is you know what I need dead air here. But let's see. While we're thinking about happy accidents, I did just I did put a little homage because like we were talking about influences, like the movies that I was watched growing up, would be, all the '80s Spielberg movies. So I did put in a little homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it was just the scene through the fan, and that was like I didn't know if you even knew what I was just. I want to shoot this scene when Marissa's on the floor, and I want to shoot through the fan, and just okay. All right, yeah, shoot through the fan.
Yeah, just for the audience, the setup there is it's early in the film. The lead character has a history of domestic violence. He strikes his wife out of anger. She falls on the kitchen floor. Sean's up on a ladder shooting overhead through the fan to kind of put her in this real kind of rabbit hole. She's just been, physically assaulted, emotionally crushed. So we want to kind of put her in a little box. And so he's got this really long shot going through the ceiling fan. What you don't know, which is interesting about that shot, I was at our screenwriters meeting a few weeks ago, and this individual came up and introduced himself. He was there for the meeting, and we talked, I'm greeting the new writers. And he says, I know you. And I said, well, I've never met you before. He says, no, I see the consequences. I said, you couldn't have seen the movie. It's not released or anything. No, I saw it. And he talked a little bit, and he obviously seen it. He was at Chandler Film Festival.
Ah, okay.
And he said it was the only film he had seen. And I said, well, how'd that happen? He says, a friend of his had tickets we had screened See the Consequences, Chandler Film Festival here locally, and couldn't use the tickets, so he gave it to his friend, and so his friend and his girlfriend came and saw the See the Consequences. Yeah. And what's interesting about that, when I was talking to this guy later, his girlfriend is a photographer, and she was telling her boyfriend during the film about how much she loved that scene of shooting through the ceiling fan. And I think, well, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Full circle.
Yeah, exactly. And I love ceiling fans. I have a lot of footage on my phone just of ceiling fans. So just so you know, anyway, I totally appreciate that.
It was appreciated by a stranger that's a photographer.
Awesome.
So these are good things. Yes.
Yeah,
awesome.
Good. All good.
All right. So not a happy accident. Again, it was planned, right? Very strategic. So since there aren't apparently any happy accidents at this point, what about funny situations? Anything that you can remember that was humorous or funny about any of the filming experience with the film?
There was a little Easter egg I put in.
There is, yes, there is.
Yes. Okay.
Is
that something that can be shared?
Yes, but
okay.
It's not super subtle. It's just because Andrea plays a
right.
Black Widow.
Oh, right. Okay.
Andrea was the femme fatale.
Yes.
And she kind of played this Black Widow character, and so we were filming one of the scenes in an office scene
with the dry erase board.
With the dry erase board, and he drew a picture. If you look carefully, there's a Black Widow spider drawn in the corner of the whiteboard.
Oh, nice.
So.
Oh, that's awesome.
I like Easter eggs.
Well, yeah, Easter eggs are good. I have as a filmmaker as well, I have things that you're going to see in our films that are from other universes. So basically it's the same universe. That's how we've brought a lot of our films together. So totally expect that of of mature filmmakers. You're always doing that so that you know that you did that.
Yep. And I always see it too. And I say,
there it is.
It's like, whoop, that's it.
That's awesome. I love that. All right. So with the message, the story, the filming, one of the elements of this film that I absolutely love is the music. So now it's time to talk about your music, Tony. And it's incredible. I think the score for this film was exactly what it needed to be, and you could just sell that by itself because it's that good. So,
you. Well, as I mentioned earlier in the lead-in, I'm a musician. I have my own studio, obviously. And for me, film music, scoring for film is the highest form of music for me. I'm a classic rock lover. I love classic rock. A lot of alternative music I like. I love a lot of classical music. So those are the genres I generally listen to. But above all of those, I listen to film scores all day long on the computer when I'm working. And I think it's the highest form of music construction in a way, because it has to do two really kind of polar opposite things at the same time. I think music for film needs to suggest to the audience what they should feel, how they should interpret the scene that they're watching, but it has to do it without them knowing it. The story's visual, so we're seeing what the actors are doing. We're following along with the emotions of the story are. But then the music comes in and says, well, this is how you should really feel about it. You know, because film operates at two levels. Here, what the story's about. Here, what you walk away feeling. And music just dials right into that.
Right. Absolutely.
It says when you should feel uncomfortable. It says when you should feel agitated. It says when you should feel things like regret, remorse, love, all the basic human emotions. Music speaks that language in film. As strong, if not stronger than the film itself sometimes. Yeah. And so for the score for Seat of Consequences, obviously it takes, it's probably about a year's worth of work. Some of the songs that are actually separate songs built into the score, some of those were written ahead of time, even before we started filming. We have a wonderful string trio intro and outro. Those were written probably at least a year or more before we started filming. Those I had written those pieces, and then I hired a trio to come in and overdub on top of the synth tracks that I had laid down for cello, violin, and viola. They did a stupendous job. We had a couple songs for Felicity, a vocalist I've worked with. She did the mariachi song. That was written at least a year before we started filming. And what's interesting about that too is people that have seen the film at the screening, the mariachi band was great and all of this. And I go, wait a minute, that was me playing all those instruments in the studio. Then I brought in
it was a high school?
It's a high school group mariachi. I was kind of lucky to find them after searching for months to find a mariachi band. But they rehearsed up in Phoenix. Felicity and I went and checked them out one night. Loved them. I worked with their representative, went back for another rehearsal. So I brought the first part of that particular mariachi song for that mariachi scene. I brought that on my phone. We played it for them. I left them a copy of it. They rehearsed, and then it was kind of maybe that's a happy accident. Actually, that really is in a big way, because I'd only rehearsed with them twice. And I left them the song, and I said, please just practice on your own. It's a big group. We use 6 of their players, but I think the actual mariachi is like 18 or 20. It's a big group, but we only needed 6 because of the size of the stage at the restaurant and everything. And then we got there early.
And talk about where it was
that was at the Los Olivos restaurant up in Scottsdale. Felicity knew one of the owners or managers, so we were able to film there, and we had a lot of extras show up and all of that. But we showed up that Sunday morning. We had to get there early because it's they had breakfast coming up or lunch coming up in a few hours. So we got there about 7, probably 7 in the morning, something like that. And, you're on pins and needles, especially because we're shooting this It's not like you can do 2 or 3 takes. So, but they came in full costume. They looked great. They looked great on stage. And, we piped in the music, and we had to do multiple takes so that Sean could move the camera around, start over again, but shoot it from this angle, shoot a close-up of Felicity and all that. So did all that. It wasn't really until I got to post and said, these kids are effing amazing. If you were to, seriously, they were so good.
And professional.
They're strumming. They looked right. They got their own little dance going on. it just, and if you watch the movie, it looks like they were performing that live. They weren't. It was me and Felicity in the studio, a year earlier or whatever.
It was the magic.
That was magic. So I take that back.
All right.
There
Happy
was
accident.
a
Woo!
big one. Yeah, very professional group.
Awesome. No, that's great because, I know for me personally, music makes everything in films when it's used appropriately. I've seen some films where I don't know why they have music in the film because it just doesn't work. So I'm always, grateful because I know that you spend so much time with that to make it work. But it adds just so much richness to the story.
The highlight of it, there's a piece when there's a montage scene, we have the sax scene that a local sax player I know came and cut those tracks for me. Yeah. To me, the highlight of the score was the Spanish aria at the end, the ending credits. I was really lucky to find Chelsea. She's a local vocalist. She sings in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. And it was great. We met once up in Mesa. I told her what the story was about. I had her listen to the song with my vocals on it for reference and the lyrics. And then but I said, I want this in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. So she worked with a friend of hers to make sure the Spanish song, the Spanish version of the song matched lyrically the intent of the English lyrics. She did a masterful job on that. She cut that track in her own studio and emailed it to me. So I just had to lay it in on in my studio on the instrumental part. And when it was all done, it just like dropped from heaven. Her voice, you've heard the song, it's very rich. It just sounds incredible. For me, the entire score, that was kind of the icing on the cake. She just did such a nice job on that. And it really lyrically was about the story itself. Yeah. If you watch the lyrics that she was singing, so that was nice. Maybe another happy accident, but these are professionals you're working with.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really accidents probably not the fair word to use there. She was very talented, knew what she was doing. More importantly, just like Sean in our relationship, knows what I want out of a particular element for the film, and they deliver.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing as a director, being able to communicate your vision, right, with the rest of the crew, and then especially like with whoever else you're bringing in, that's even if it's only for one day, one, afternoon or whatever. It's how well have you done that communication to get them prepped so that when they show up, they're ready to deliver for you, right? Which is one of the things. I know you spend a lot of time prepping and putting everything together, but you still have to count on other people showing up and, kind of doing what they're supposed to do. And I think that's one of the things that I can say with what I've seen you do on set, what I've seen with your, productions, that you're able to do that because people have respect for what you do, I think. And I mean, it's a tough business, right? When because there's a lot of people out there that say they're going to do whatever they're going to do and then they don't, right? And so I think that's one of the big things here is really in, talking to people and educating them on, okay, when you're a filmmaker, when you're in this business, it is all about showing up and doing what you're saying, being committed to it. And then, working with others, but also being able to showcase their talents, which is what you get to do a lot of, is you've showcased a lot of talent.
I guess as I look at my role as the filmmaker, with all the other hats we all have to wear, I have kind of a couple guiding principles for that. The first is, all decisions have to serve the project. They have to serve the film. So I can't even let some of my personal or emotional issues on set or off set or whatever interfere. All decisions should be what serves the movie. What's going to make that the best movie based on the story and the talent that we have assigned to it, both in front of and behind the camera. So all decisions have to serve the movie. And that helps kind of take some of the personal, diffuse some of the personal elements that you can see you're working with people, stuff's going to happen, and so you want to kind of diffuse that. And then the second guiding principle is, as a filmmaker, you own all problems.
Right.
If someone's late, I hired the wrong person. If something is messed up on a scene or whatever, I should have handled that as a writer. I should have caught that. So I think it's too easy because the complexity of working with so many people on a set, you're always on a time crunch. There's a lot of technical things everyone has to be aware of at every moment. So there's a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong. But I always tell myself I'm responsible for all problems. So regardless if somebody breaks something, I own it. You know, and I think you need to take that philosophy on it. It does create, I think, a certain level of respect with your team that somebody's going to make sure things get done, period.
No,
you just have to kind of adopt that and go from there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'm going to jump over to Sean. So what's next for you? Or what are you working on? Actually, maybe that's a better question. That you can talk about, right? Okay, what can you share?
Do you like that little?
Or what Easter eggs can you leave us? Yeah.
Do you like that little red flag there?
No, the next thing I have coming up is our next.
We've got something. We're in pre-pro right now.
Okay.
So and we're basically just looking for some locations.
Okay.
We've gone through the script a number of times.
Another feature film.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And again, every project we want, for me at least, and I think working in tandem with him, we want to up our game, a little bit more demanding.
Right.
You know, doing a film in a language I don't speak was pretty challenging.
Yeah.
You know, but so we've got something that we're trying to look at maybe for next fall. Well,
okay.
For next fall.
Genre? Can you share genre?
Yeah, I'd say what? Psychological horror, erotic,
nice.
little eroticism in there.
Nice. Okay.
So, something we think, I think we both agree, very commercial.
Okay.
We know the films that we've modeled it after.
Okay.
After the script was written, then you got to say, but how do we want the look and feel of the
right.
film?
This one's going to be more stylized.
Very,
nice.
very highly stylized.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
So I think it will satisfy people that like suspense with a little bit of horror, kind of is a motif in there, and a lot of psychological.
Good.
Stuff. So
all right. I love that kind of stuff. So yeah, I love horror and psychological thriller, suspense, basically anything in those genres. No, that's great. So obviously that's what you're working on next as well. Yeah. So on the music front, why don't you talk about what just happened for you on the music front?
Sure. As I mentioned, Felicity Heron is a vocalist that's worked on a couple of my films. She's pretty prominent in The Seed of Consequences. And so I've worked with her. I promised her I would write her an album. So we just released an album called Candy. Yes. It's kind of a rock alternative. I would
almost not even call it a rock alternative. It's definitely upbeat, but it's got like such a great flow. I always like rate my CDs based on can I drive to them, right? If I can drive long distance, like whatever, then it's a good CD. It's a good CD. I can drive to it. So, and I won't get into an accident. So let's just say that. But it's nice because it has fast tempos and then slower tempos. And so, and I like a lot of instrumentals, and obviously there's a lot of instrumentation in this one. And so I really appreciate that because that gives it, again, that rich sound that you always have with your music. But I mean, I wouldn't call it rock alternative though. I don't know. I have to think of a better like term for that. So, but yeah, it's definitely contemporary is what I would say.
Very good.
Yeah. So
yeah, you can find that. It's called the title of the album's Candy.
Yes,
it's
and I love that.
T Severe, my name, T Severe featuring Felicity Heron.
Yes.
If you go to bandcamp.com and search for it, you can download it there.
Yeah, you've got it on Spotify.
It's on Spotify. It's on iTunes. It's on Apple Music. It's on all of those. So and the sound effects are courtesy of two of my cats.
Yeah, exactly. So
they're hunting each other.
Talk about your cats a little bit because they're owners of the house that you live in.
Yeah,
right.
Three shelter cats, 3 rescue cats. 2 of them are fighting. Well, one of them is hunting the other right now.
And the other one's operating the camera. So
yes, pretty much. That's what I'm seeing right now. I'm like, I think we're getting to a close right now. I think that means the podcast is about over.
So if you're thinking about animals, always remember to adopt.
Yes.
Arizona Humane
Society. Yeah, Tony has got you've got a series that you always put together of photos of the, kind of the mischief of the cats and what they do throughout the weeks. All right. Well, thank you so much for being part of the interview. Is there a last message you would like to leave our audience? I'm going to have your contact information as part of this, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, is there a last message you'd like to leave?
I would just say, I'm going to just speak a little bit on behalf of Sean. I think as a filmmaker, especially a writer-director, when you're writing, you want the story to come across a certain way cinematically. And so I would suggest to writers that want to get into film, is you are out there, putting crews together. If you find a director of photography that really matches your style, hang on to them. It makes the whole process of filmmaking smoother on the logistical, pragmatic side. But as a storyteller, which essentially we all are as filmmakers, you're much more likely to get the feel of the story you're trying to tell across if you've got somebody that kind of works in tandem and has your vision. And I have to say that's really what I've enjoyed most about working with Sean, is that we kind of look at the story the same way. And so there's this unwritten language that we can have when we're on set trying to capture that. So, and it's been an honor to work with him. I mean, he's got a wealth of background experience. So, anyways, that's all I would say. Let him turn red.
Probably am.
Okay.
Color correction.
All right. Any last words?
It is a complete honor to work with Tony, because again, it's like the same thing. It's like we just, we're on set and we're like, we know what's going on. There's no creative competition going on at all.
Nice.
It's just like, oh, this is what we want to do. And we do it. We blast through our day and we make awesome stuff.
Yeah.
This is great. No, and I mean, that's really, like, for me, the film community is about having these type of relationships. And that's one thing I can say, Tony, I so appreciate working with you, and for all the years that we've known each other, I appreciate that, because it's nice to have people that you can work with on a regular basis and always have that support. So I appreciate that support you've given us and for all the things that we do, but I, reciprocate as much as I possibly can. So
you're doing it today.
All right. Well, that is it for our show today. And this will be up on Ask a Filmmaker podcast, which is where you're going to see this video. And we're going to try and get this up quick, because you've got that education class coming up on Saturday. We want to try and get that out.
Oh, it'd be great.
Yeah. So anyway, and then we'll be back with another podcast coming in May. So thank you so much for watching.